My wife's sister brought her new boyfriend to a family dinner. He was everything I wasn't. An expensive suit, a flashy watch, that confidence that comes from never having struggled for anything. From the moment he sat down, he made it his mission to remind everyone at that table just how much better he was than me. My wife told me to stop making the family look bad when I tried to defend myself. Her mother nodded in agreement. Even my father-in-law looked uncomfortable but said nothing. So I did what they wanted. I stayed quiet. I let him talk. I let him brag. I let him mock my job, my car, my life, until he made one critical mistake. He mentioned where he worked. That's when I pulled out my phone. And what happened next made every single person at that table realize they had picked the wrong side. My name is Nathan Cross. I'm 34 years old, and I work as a senior compliance officer for the Federal Trade Commission in Chicago. It's not glamorous work. Nobody makes movies about compliance officers. We don't get corner offices or expense accounts. What we do is enforce consumer protection laws, investigate fraud, and make sure businesses aren't screwing over the American public. The pay is decent, the government benefits are solid, but it's never going to make me rich. And for the past 3 years of my marriage to Emily, that's been just fine. Until her younger sister, Brooke, started dating Trevor Lancaster. The first time I heard about Trevor was 6 weeks ago. Emily came home from lunch with her sister absolutely glowing with excitement. "Nathan, you won't believe it. Brooke met someone amazing. He's a senior executive at some consulting firm downtown. Drives a Porsche, has a penthouse in River North, takes her to all these incredible restaurants." "That's great," I said, not looking up from the report I was reading about predatory lending practices. Emily frowned at my lack of enthusiasm. "You could at least pretend to be happy for her." "I am happy for her," I said. "I hope he treats her well." "He's taking her to Paris next month, first-class, 5-star hotels. She sent me pictures of the places they're staying. It's like something out of a magazine." Over the next few weeks, Trevor became the only topic of conversation in Emily's family. Her mother, Patricia, called constantly with updates about Brooke's new relationship. Brooke says Trevor knows the mayor. Brooke says Trevor just closed a $20 million deal. Brooke says Trevor is taking her to a charity gala where tickets cost $5,000 each. Every conversation seemed designed to highlight everything Trevor had that I didn't. Emily started making comments too, small things at first. Trevor took Brooke to that new steakhouse downtown, the one we couldn't afford for our anniversary. Or, Brooke posted photos of the jewelry Trevor bought her. "Did you see the size of those diamonds?" I bit my tongue and kept working. My job at the FTC was demanding, especially lately. We were in the middle of a major investigation into several companies operating what we suspected were sophisticated pyramid schemes disguised as legitimate consulting firms. I was working 60-hour weeks building cases, coordinating with attorneys, and preparing for potential prosecutions. Then came the dinner invitation. Emily's mother wanted to host a family dinner so everyone could meet Trevor properly. The tone in Patricia's voice when she called made it clear this wasn't optional. "Nathan, I expect you to be on your best behavior. Trevor is very successful and well-connected. We don't want him to think Brooke's family is beneath him." "I'm sure it'll be fine," I replied, already dreading the evening. Emily was more direct when she brought it up later. "Please don't talk about work," she said. "Nobody wants to hear about government regulations and compliance violations over dinner." "What should I talk about then?" "I don't know. Sports, current events. Just try to be personable for once." That stung more than I wanted to admit. When had I become the embarrassment Emily needed to manage? The dinner was set for Saturday night at Patricia and Donald's house in Wilmette. Emily spent 3 hours getting ready, trying on 4 different dresses before settling on the most expensive one she owned. "You need to change," she said, looking at my khakis and button-down shirt. "Trevor's going to be wearing a suit." "I'm comfortable in this." "Nathan, please, just this once, can you try to look successful? I changed into my one good suit, the one I wore to important meetings at work. It was 5 years old and had been tailored when I weighed 10 pounds less, but it would have to do. We drove to Wilmette in our 7-year-old Honda Civic, Emily checking her makeup in the visor mirror every few minutes. When we pulled up to her parents' house, there was already a silver Porsche 911 parked in the driveway, gleaming under the streetlights like a trophy. Trevor Lancaster was exactly what I expected. Late 20s, perfectly styled hair, a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. He had that practiced charm that wealthy people develop, the kind that makes everyone in the room feel like they're the most important person he's ever met. When we walked in, he was holding court in the living room, Patricia and Donald hanging on his every word, while Brooke sat next to him with an expression I can only describe as worshipful. "Nathan, Emily," Patricia called out, "come meet Trevor." We walked over and Trevor stood up, extending his hand with a smile that showed too many teeth. "Nathan, right? Emily's told me so much about you. All good things, I hope." Trevor's handshake was firm, bordering on aggressive. "Absolutely. She mentioned you work for the government. That must be interesting." The way he said interesting made it clear he meant boring. Dinner started well enough. Patricia had gone all out, serving courses like we were at a Michelin star restaurant. Trevor dominated the conversation, telling stories about business deals, celebrity encounters, and exotic vacations. "Brooke, we're thinking Bali for New Year's. You ever been to Bali, Nathan?" "No, I haven't had the chance." "Shame. It's incredible. Of course, you need to know the right resorts. The tourist places are awful, but if you have connections, there are these private villas that most people don't even know exist. I've got a guy who handles all that for me." Donald, Emily's father, was clearly impressed. "Must be nice having that kind of access." Trevor shrugged modestly. "It's all about who you know. Business is really about relationships. You build the right network and everything else falls into place." Patricia turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Nathan, why don't you tell Trevor what you do?" Emily stiffened beside me. "I work for the Federal Trade Commission," I said simply. "Oh," Trevor said, his interest already fading. "Government work. What exactly does that involve?" "We protect consumers from fraudulent business practices, investigation, enforcement, that sort of thing." Trevor nodded slowly, that condescending smile growing wider. "So you're basically a bureaucrat." I could feel Emily's hand on my leg under the table, warning me not to engage. "Something like that." "Must not pay very well, though, right? Government salaries are public record. I looked up the GS scale once. You're probably making, what, 70, 80,000 a year? The table went quiet. Emily's face was red. Before I could respond, Trevor continued. "Don't get me wrong. Someone's got to do those jobs. Society needs people willing to work for less than they're worth. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur." Brooke laughed, actually laughed at her sister's husband being insulted. "Trevor's company just landed a consulting contract with 3 Fortune 500 companies. It's a completely different world." "I'm sure it is," I said evenly. Patricia jumped in quickly, steering the conversation away. "Nathan, tell us more about this charity gala next week." "Oh, it's going to be incredible," Trevor said, happy to return to his favorite subject. "The governor will be there, several senators, CEOs from every major company in Chicago. Tickets are $10,000 per couple, but it's really about making connections." One conversation at the right event can lead to deals worth millions. That's the kind of thing Nathan would never understand. Working for the government, you don't really operate in that world. You're just pushing papers while the rest of us are actually creating value. Emily's hand tightened on my leg. "Please don't make a scene," she whispered. I wasn't planning to. Patricia was nodding along with everything Trevor said. "We're so proud of Brooke for finding someone so accomplished." Donald cleared his throat uncomfortably but said nothing. Trevor leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying himself. No offense, Nathan, but I don't know how you do it. Working some 9 to 5 government job, driving what was it? Emily said. A Honda? He made it sound like a disease. Making barely enough to get by while watching everyone else succeed? I'd go crazy. Maybe some people are just wired differently. Some of us need excitement, challenge, the thrill of closing big deals. Others are content with mediocrity. The word mediocrity hung in the air like smoke. I saw Emily wince. Brooke was smiling, clearly delighted that her boyfriend was putting her sister's husband in his place. Patricia looked satisfied, like Trevor had confirmed everything she'd always thought about me. Even Donald, who had always been kind to me, wouldn't meet my eyes. "Trevor," Emily said weakly, "that's a little harsh." "I'm just being honest," Trevor replied. "No point in sugarcoating reality. Nathan seems like a nice enough guy, but let's be real. He's never going to make real money in government work. He's never going to drive a Porsche or take you to Paris or live the kind of life Brooke and I are building. It's not his fault, he just doesn't have the drive. Some people are leaders, some are followers. It takes all kinds to make the world go round." That's when he made his critical mistake. The consulting firm I work for, we deal with this all the time. We help companies optimize their business models, maximize profitability. Sometimes that means restructuring. Sometimes it means finding new markets. Sometimes it means creative financial engineering. We're called Apex Strategic Solutions. Maybe you've heard of us. We've been in the news quite a bit lately. I had heard of them. In fact, I'd spent the last 4 months building a federal case against them. My phone was in my pocket, containing documentation that Trevor's company was operating a sophisticated pyramid scheme that had defrauded over 15,000 people out of approximately $60 million. They recruited people with promises of high returns on investment, used money from new investors to pay earlier investors, and employed aggressive sales tactics that specifically targeted elderly and vulnerable populations. Something in my expression must have changed because Trevor noticed. "What's that look? You have heard of us?" "I have," I said quietly. "We're one of the fastest growing consulting firms in the Midwest," Trevor continued, oblivious. "Just closed a major funding round, $20 million from venture capital investors who see the potential in what we're building. My compensation package last year was over $400,000, and I'm not even a partner yet. Another 2 years, I'll be pulling down 7 figures easy. That's the difference between what I do and what you do, Nathan. I create value, I build wealth. You just shuffle papers and collect a government paycheck." Emily was mortified. "Nathan," she said urgently, "let's not—" But I wasn't done being quiet. "Actually, Trevor, I need to ask you something about your company." Trevor's smile widened. "Sure, fire away. Happy to explain how real business works." "How exactly does Apex Strategic Solutions generate revenue? Is it primarily through consulting fees, or is it more dependent on recruiting new clients who then recruit other clients in a multi-level structure?" Trevor blinked. "We have multiple revenue streams. It's pretty complex. So the people you recruit pay an upfront fee to join the program, correct? And then they're encouraged to recruit others with commission structures that heavily favor those at the top of the pyramid." The table had gone very quiet. Trevor's smile was fading. "I don't like what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything," I said calmly. "I'm stating facts about your company's business model. Facts that my team at the FTC has spent 4 months documenting." The color drained from Trevor's face. "What?" I pulled out my phone and opened the file I'd been reviewing just that morning. "Trevor Lancaster, Senior Vice President of Client Acquisition at Apex Strategic Solutions, also known internally as Director of Recruitment. Compensation tied directly to the number of new investors you bring into the scheme, with particular bonuses for recruiting individuals over the age of 65. The table erupted. "What is he talking about?" Brooke demanded. Emily was staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Trevor was standing now, his face red. "You have no right to investigate me personally." "I didn't investigate you personally. I investigated your company. You just happen to be one of the key players in a fraudulent organization that's currently under federal investigation for operating an illegal pyramid scheme, wire fraud, and targeting vulnerable populations." Patricia was shaking her head in disbelief. "Nathan, this is ridiculous. Trevor's company is highly successful. They have legitimate investors." I turned my phone around so everyone could see the screen. "These are internal Apex documents obtained through a federal subpoena. This one shows the actual revenue structure. 93% of the money flowing into Apex Strategic Solutions comes from recruitment fees paid by new clients. Less than 7% comes from actual consulting services. That's the textbook definition of a pyramid scheme." I swiped to the next document. This email is from Trevor to his recruitment team. He's congratulating someone named Justin for successfully pressuring a 72-year-old widow into investing her entire retirement savings, $45,000. She was told she'd double her money in 6 months. Instead, she lost everything. "You son of a bitch," Trevor said, but his voice was shaking. "Those documents are confidential." "They're evidence," I corrected, "in a federal investigation that's been ongoing since March. We have testimony from over 200 victims. We have financial records showing exactly how money moves through your organization. We have recorded sales calls where your team makes false promises about guaranteed returns. We have everything we need for multiple felony convictions." Brooke was crying now. "Trevor, tell them this isn't true." Trevor was frantically texting on his phone, probably calling his lawyer. Patricia looked like she'd been slapped. Emily was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. "The fancy penthouse is leased, not owned. The Porsche is financed at a rate that would make any reasonable person's head spin. The Paris trip was paid with a company credit card, funded entirely by money stolen from victims. Trevor's personal bank account, according to records we subpoenaed last week, shows a pattern of living far beyond his actual means, funded by fraudulent commissions." Donald finally spoke up. "Is any of this true, Trevor?" Trevor's face was a mask of rage and fear. "You have no right to discuss an ongoing investigation." "Actually, the investigation is no longer ongoing. It concluded last Tuesday. The U.S. Attorney's Office is preparing indictments. I'd estimate you have about 2 weeks before federal agents show up at your door with arrest warrants." The silence that followed was absolute. Trevor grabbed his jacket and stormed out without another word. Brooke ran after him, sobbing. Patricia and Donald sat frozen, the elaborate dinner they'd prepared suddenly irrelevant. Emily was looking at me like she was seeing me for the first time. "You knew," she said quietly. "You knew all of this when we walked in here tonight." "I knew his company was under investigation," I confirmed. "I didn't know he'd spend dinner mocking me and calling me mediocre. That part was just bonus entertainment." "But you let him," Emily said. "You let him humiliate you in front of my whole family." "I let him reveal exactly who he is," I corrected, "and I let your family show me exactly where I stand with them. Patricia," I turned to my mother-in-law, "you told me to be on my best behavior tonight. You didn't want me to embarrass Trevor. Mission accomplished. I didn't say a word while he spent 2 hours explaining how worthless my career is and how pathetic my life is compared to his." Donald, Emily's father, finally found his voice. "Nathan, I had no idea. None of us did." "Didn't you, though?" I asked. "You heard him bragging about his company. You heard him talking about helping businesses maximize profits through creative financial engineering. You heard him mention targeting elderly clients. Every warning sign was right there, but you were too impressed by the Porsche and the Paris trips to ask any questions." Patricia's face went red. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I stood up. "Trevor Lancaster is exactly the kind of person my job exists to stop. He's a con artist who preys on vulnerable people and uses the money to fund a lifestyle designed to impress people like you. And when he walked into your house tonight, instead of being skeptical of someone too good to be true, you all decided I was the problem, because I don't drive a Porsche, because I can't afford to take Emily to Paris, because I work a government job that actually matters instead of scamming people out of their retirement savings. Emily was crying now. Nathan, I'm so sorry. I should have defended you. You're right, I said simply. You should have. I left the house and drove home alone. Emily stayed at her parents' house that night. The next morning, she came home early. We need to talk, she said. I was reading the newspaper in our living room, drinking coffee like it was any other Sunday morning. Okay, I said. I'm listening. I was wrong, Emily said, sitting down across from me. My whole family was wrong. We got caught up in the glamour and the money, and we treated you like you didn't matter. I did matter, I corrected. I just didn't matter as much as Trevor's Porsche and his fake success story. Emily winced, but didn't argue. My mom called this morning. She and my dad want to apologize. Do they? Or do they want to apologize because they're embarrassed they got fooled? Both, probably, Emily admitted. Brooke's devastated. She really believed Trevor cared about her. He probably did, in his own way. Sociopaths are capable of affection. They just prioritize themselves above everyone else. Emily was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. I've been treating you like Trevor treated those elderly victims. What do you mean? Well, you provide security, stability, genuine care, but I've been chasing the fantasy of something more exciting, something flashier. I've been making you feel like you're not enough because you don't fit some materialistic ideal I bought into. She was crying again. You are enough, Nathan. Your work matters. What you do protects people, and I've been too shallow to appreciate that. I wanted to stay angry. Part of me thought I should make her work harder for forgiveness. But the truth was, Emily's recognition of what she'd done meant something. She wasn't making excuses. She was owning it. I accept your apology. But things need to change, Emily. I need to know you're on my side even when I'm not the most impressive person in the room, even when someone else has more money or a better car or a more exciting life, especially then. You're right, Emily said. I'll do better, I promise. Over the next 2 weeks, the Trevor Lancaster situation exploded exactly as I predicted. Federal agents arrested him along with 4 other Apex Strategic Solutions executives. The company was shut down, its assets seized, and victims were directed to a federal claims process. The story made local news, then national news, when reporters dug into just how many people had been defrauded. Brooke called Emily every day, alternating between despair and anger. How could I have been so stupid? I saw the signs. I just didn't want to believe them. Patricia called to apologize formally. Nathan, I judged you unfairly. You were trying to warn us in your own way, and I was too impressed with the wrong things to listen. Donald sent an email that was surprisingly thoughtful. He acknowledged that he'd always been uncomfortable with Trevor but hadn't trusted his instincts because everyone else seemed so certain. That dinner became a turning point for Emily's family. Patricia started asking me about my work, actually listening when I explained what I did. Donald invited me to lunch, just the 2 of us, and asked questions about how to spot financial scams. Even Brooke, once she recovered from the heartbreak, seemed to look at me differently. The trial happened 6 months later. I testified about the investigation, explained how we'd built the case, and watched Trevor Lancaster's defense crumble under the weight of evidence. He was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. His co-defendants received similar sentences. The judge made a point of saying that people who prey on the vulnerable deserve the harshest penalties the law allows. Emily was in the courtroom gallery watching. Afterward, she took my hand as we walked out of the courthouse. I'm proud of you, she said. Not because you humiliated Trevor at dinner, though I'll admit that was satisfying to watch. I'm proud because you do work that actually matters. You protect people who can't protect themselves. That's worth more than any Porsche. 6 months after that, we bought a new car. Nothing fancy, just a reliable Toyota that fit our budget and our values. But Emily insisted on one thing. She wanted a bumper sticker made. It said, "My husband is a compliance officer and he's a hero." It's corny and embarrassing, and I love it. Sometimes people ask about it at red lights or in parking lots. Emily always tells them the story. Not the whole story, but enough. About how I stopped a man who was hurting people, and how she learned that real success isn't measured in bank accounts or sports cars. It's measured in the lives you protect and the integrity you maintain, even when everyone around you is chasing something shinier. I still see Patricia and Donald regularly. We have family dinners, though the atmosphere is different now. There's more respect, more genuine conversation. Patricia asks me about my cases, the ones I can discuss. Donald wants to understand how federal investigations work. They've both become advocates for consumer protection, sharing information about scams with their friends and warning others to be skeptical of opportunities that seem too good to be true. Brooke eventually started dating again. She's more careful now, more skeptical, but also more genuine. She told Emily that watching Trevor's arrest taught her that character matters more than charisma, that the quiet, steady people who don't seek attention are often the ones actually doing important work. As for that dinner, it's become family legend. The night Nathan took down the con artist, Patricia tells the story at parties, though she leaves out the parts where she told me to behave and worried about impressing Trevor. Donald claims he knew something was off about Trevor all along, which isn't quite true, but I let him have it. Emily tells the most accurate version. She doesn't hide her mistakes or pretend she had my back from the start. She owns the fact that she was impressed by the wrong things and learned a hard lesson about what actually matters. As for me, I went back to work at the FTC, still pushing papers, still making my government salary, still driving a car that will never turn heads. But I sleep well at night knowing that the work I do protects people who need protecting, and that the quiet, boring job Trevor Lancaster mocked is exactly the job that brought him to justice. Sometimes I think about that dinner and what would have happened if Trevor hadn't been so arrogant, if he'd just been polite, kept his mouth shut, and not spent 2 hours explaining how superior he was to everyone else at that table. Maybe he'd have gotten away with it longer. Maybe the investigation would have taken a different path. But arrogance is usually what brings people like Trevor down. They can't help themselves. They need everyone to know how smart they are, how successful, how much better they are than everyone else. And that need to impress, that desperate hunger for validation, makes them sloppy. It makes them brag about things they should keep quiet. It makes them mention their company name at a family dinner where a federal compliance officer happens to be sitting quietly taking notes. If you found this story satisfying, if it reminded you that real worth isn't measured by what you drive or where you vacation, please hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment below about a time when someone underestimated you and lived to regret it. And don't forget to like this video, because sometimes the quiet people in the room are the most dangerous ones. Not because they're violent or cruel, but because they're competent, because they do work that matters, because when the moment comes to reveal the truth, they have receipts. And there's nothing more devastating to a con artist than someone who actually knows what they're talking about. Until next time, remember that the most impressive people often don't need to impress anyone. They just do their jobs, protect their communities, and let their work speak for itself.